particular that you're like really feeling passionate about these days that you'd like to talk about?
I would say the thing that I'm most passionate about right now is introspective personal healing. So, as you age, you start to reflect on where your life has been and where your life is going. And I ask myself the question of how do I stay in that moment to be with my own personal life? And what do I need to be doing to take care of my personal health on several different levels? So I think my passion lately has been very personal, in taking care of various aspects of health. So in Taoism and in Chinese medicine, we divide health up into the 5 elements. So we can isolate those to have a focus. So we have physical health, obviously, that's important to take care of. And asking myself, well, what does that mean to take care of that? What is an integrative approach that, of course, won't hurt me, but enhance me? Whether, and because we're talking about physical health, we're also talking about medicine. But medicine, I'm trying to be the medicine and integrate the medicine, not just Eastern medicine or Chinese medicine or Ayurvedic medicine or what we say Western medicine. In China, they don't really have that definition of separation of this medicine, that medicine. It's all just medicine.
What do you mean by be the medicine? You're trying to like your thoughts even are medicine for you? Yeah.
Well, but even just staying on the physical plane, living in harmony with nature. Like I was saying last night, I drank a little too much green tea that late, kept me up. I wasn't really in harmony with the cycles of nature when I tried to sleep because I had a little. I don't drink a lot of caffeine at all, so when I have some, it's a little, especially that time of day. So being the medicine on a physical plane, I mean, how can I stay in balance physically? And so there's other aspects of health, though, besides the physical, and that is such a big subject alone, just physical, but we concentrate so much on nutrition or lifestyle or doing yoga, but what about the other aspects of our health? So that would be mental health, emotional health, your spiritual health, and financial health. So we divide the health into those 5 categories because we take off on the 5 different elements. So we want that balance of those various aspects of our health. So for spiritual health, what is our connection to the source? In Taoism, they refer to the way as the subtle realm of the universe, the subtle energy of the universe. So we want to have that connection with that and have take responsibility for our own personal connection to that subtle realm. And I love that expression in Taoism, the subtle realm of the universe.
Why?
Because it's like a veil, a sleeve that we're enmeshed into, not enmeshed, but we walk through in our lives. And when I walk through my life, I could feel that veil. And it feels like a great mystery to me. That is okay, not trying to define that great mystery. And I like that because that seems, even though it's difficult to define, even though it seems unreal, that definition seems real to me because I could feel it even in the parking lot of Walmart.
You're right. Yeah.
You know, but especially here at Yogaville, you know, you were in nature. You know, you could be in touch with the stars, with, of course, the trees and nature. And to me, that being in touch with that allows me to acknowledge that subtle realm of the universe, or you can say great mystery, that we, and religion and spirituality get confused between the two. In religion, we're personifying things so we can have some sort of identity with the spirit. So we personify having a supreme being or a saint, allowing us to have some sort of connection to spirituality through that person. In Taoism, it's encouraged to have your own personal connection with the subtle realm of the universe, as opposed to through a spiritual teacher of whatever sort. So that's an aspect of health. Then there's mental health, and that's why we do meditation. And Taoist meditation, we have a little bit, the meditations are a little bit aligned to nature, and also using channels in the body. So one of the simplest, most beginning natural meditations is concentration on the North Star. So in fact, that's the very first meditation that someone might learn when they're studying Taoist meditation. So they have a connection to the North Star and let that, and even if it's just visual or imagery, bring that North Star energy from the North Star, it doesn't have to be physically present, to the third eye. In Taoist meditation, it's called Tian Mu. Tian Mu is an area here. It's also a acupuncture point called Yin Tang, but the area is called Tian Mu, which means a crystal palace. And so we meditate on that and let that North Star energy come into our body and then slowly filter down to the other energy points. Sea of Tranquility, which is the middle Dantian, and then the lower Dantian, which is called the field of elixir. Yeah. So we let that filter down.
Even like these names say so much to me.
Yeah.
Right?
They're meditations in themselves.
Yeah, what do you say? The lower elixir and the, what were the other two?
Field of elixir, meaning field,
yeah.
A field. The sea.
The Sea of Tranquility.
Of tranquility. And then Crystal Palace.
The Crystal Palace. To me, already that, it feels like it's honoring the experience that we're having, or even what we are.
Right.
You know, and you were speaking about, you know, existing in this subtle realm.
Right.
You know, and I wonder if like awe and wonder are the most appropriate responses to this experience that we're having. Like we're born into this world and we're all just like, well, how do we get here?
Right.
And it's unbelievable. Like it seems to be unbelievable to me. But then somehow it feels common to move away from that, you know, the majesty of the entire thing that we're a part of. And when I'm listening to you speak, it seems like maybe Taoism is pointing us back to that sense of awe for what this is.
Well, yeah, Taoism is definitely a nature. I don't want to use the word religion, but a way of understanding ourselves and our existence. I'm not just going to say on the earth, but I would say our existence between heaven and earth. And I always like to clarify the word heaven in Taoism. They're really referring to the sky and everything in the sky, such as the North Star, sun, moon, all the stars. Constellation and stars are a big part of the cosmology of Taoism. It's believed that we came from the stars and that we have star energy in our body. Science, maybe 10 years ago, I think, discovered that we do have elements of stardust inside us. And so that's why we look to the stars frequently, because we feel we came from the stars in Taoist cosmology.
But even the sun itself,
The sun is a star.
is a star, and
Yeah.
it seems that we're in a way grown from the sun, right? We wouldn't be able to exist without the sun.
Correct.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's interesting you bring that up. My teacher, I Ching is his name. He maybe just a few years ago, three years ago, came out with 2 new books. Both of the books are about the sun. And one of the books, the name is The Teachings of the Sun. And without sun, as you mentioned, no life. So everything comes from the sun.
It's amazing the difference that concentration or focus can make, right? So, like, I've had an experience probably fairly common. I'm in the sun my whole life. Growing up, it's just there. I don't really give it any more attention. But then, at some point, some years ago, I started the practice of really like drinking in the sun,
Right.
Just being in the sun and just feeling it.
Yeah.
And now it's so obvious to me that it's medicine. In those moments when I'm drinking and I'm like, whoa, this is medicine, and I feel so enhanced by that experience. So it's amazing, like the difference. Like it was still doing that before, but the focus wasn't there.
I hear you. In fact, you're reminding me there. One of our retreat centers that we go to is Temescal State Park, and some mornings we hike up to greet the sun, and we do a sun meditation where we're facing the rising sun as it rises over the horizon, and we breathe it in and swallow the sun. So as the sun is rising, we're bringing the sun into our mouth, capturing the sunbeams, moving our mouth around to create saliva, then swallowing that sun saliva down into those into the lower dantian. So we're like you were doing, you're letting the sun feed you.
Yeah.
So you put it quite well.
Back to this idea of kind of between the earth and and heaven, right, or the sky, right?
Right.
Like existing. It's very obvious because, well, that's the situation. we are existing between
Right.
those two places. So how do we do that? How do we exist well in the realm between?
Well, by working on these 5 healths I was talking about, and how to work. And the last one is emotional health. And how we do that is by cultivating ourselves. So that word, cultivating, is frequently used in Taoism. And cultivating, I like the word because it lends itself to thinking about a garden. And are we any different than a garden? Garden either gets tended or it does not get tended. And we know the results of a garden that's not tended, but we also know the results of a garden that's well tended. So we are cultivating. And how do we cultivate ourselves? Well, we have to first think about those 5 healths, and then there's more specific ways to do that.
But even first, just this idea of cultivating ourselves, to me, to even first to see that as maybe my primary responsibility or focus. I consider, what would the world be like if that was common? Because it's very practical, right? There's so much attention on external things that I don't have control over.
Right.
but I do have more control over this one being. So why shouldn't I focus on cultivating him? And there seems to be parts of the self, right, where one part can be sort of the caretaker or the cultivator of the other self, and that one really knows what I need, right? What this one needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's your decision to make.
Yeah.
And that's why meditation and time alone is so important. So you can make those decisions to cultivate yourself. I mean, being human is constantly gaining wisdom as we age. Hopefully we take care of ourselves well enough to live into an older age, as opposed to toxic abuse. But taking a look at that, and how are we going to manage our lives?
Right. And I have to have fun doing it because it never ends.
Yeah.
I can always do a better job at taking care of myself, right?
Yeah. And also, we have to decide what's fun for us.
Yeah.
Fun for one might be having a few shots of vodka. But that's an illusion and an addiction.
I mean, kind of fun on the level of this grand personal project
Right.
that is me, right?
Yeah. And, we have to take care of ourselves. And some points in our life, the taking care of ourselves can be a very, very full-time job and a full-time retreat. That's why many sages, but also many people throughout the world go on retreats. Sometimes you go on, I know in August you're having a 9-day silent retreat here. That's a time for inner reflection, especially the 9-day retreat, you're in silence. So you're sort of coached into being introspective and reflecting on making those kinds of decisions to keep yourself in balance.
Do you often consider your relationship with words themselves? Because you bring up, silent retreat. So, this balance, obviously, words can be very beautiful and useful, but at the same time, they can be overused, right? And the silence is so powerful, right?
Right.
So is that an exploration that you have to try to find the balance in your life between words and silence?
Yeah, well, I think being simple in your words and being compassionate in your words and being humble in your words is a practice in Taoism. And if you're minimizing your words to say what needs to be said, then you're also finding more times of silence. Sometimes there's a need to help others that could be tempting to overtalk. But I think everyone needs to have responsibility for hearing the wisdom that they need to hear. And the person speaking that wisdom needs to say it succinctly to protect their own life force. There's nothing, I think this is part of wisdom and cultivation, there's nothing one needs to prove with his or her words.
That's such a big thing, or even to prove with your whole life,
Yeah.
right? Just to feel that there's nothing to prove.
Yeah. So, and that's I'm paraphrasing the Tao Te Ching, but you don't have to have a form of, it's a form of arrogance in a way, trying to be domineering in your words, or trying to prove something with your words, or to make a point with your words, or to win an argument with your words. In the end, it's exhausting to your life force. But
Yeah.
there's nothing you have to prove, because you're whole, you're born whole in and of itself. how do we stay in harmony throughout our lives? So you have wholeness that you have when you were born. How do we stay in harmony with that?
Do you think it's important to realize how, in a way, that wholeness left us, right? Because as you said, it's there when we're born, and then I guess it's not there. Something happens, and then many of us are interested in returning to the wholeness. So it's important to understand what happened to begin with to take us away from that?
To some degree. So expressing what happened is important, whether it be through counseling. In our system of Taoism, we actually have a form of counseling called the Path of Constructive Life. But I encourage anyone to get counseling so they could see what happened. But it does come to a point where in your own spirit, moving on from that, whatever happened to disturb that wholeness. The forgive and forget, and concentrate on the good. So when you're changing an oil of your car, right, you have to take the old oil out first, drain it out. Once it's out, it's done. You seal the hole back up, put new oil in, you're ready to go. So it's the same thing as concentrate on what you are doing and cultivating and bringing into your life. It is a place that is tempting to get stuck of, well, this happened to me or that happened to me, but are you going to allow that to be with you?
Or even
whole life?
the question of potentially those things that happened can even lead to, I don't know the right words to use for it. I wouldn't say like greater wholeness or something, but it does seem that the challenges themselves can be such teachers that can lead us to a more profound place even.
Yeah, and that's what mistakes are all about.
Yeah.
The question is, do we learn from those mistakes? And what do we focus on after that?
But even just to be grateful for them to begin with is like, to me, a giant giant step to actually feel gratitude for those challenges themselves. It's very hard.
Yeah. I mean, we're all human and everyone makes mistakes.
Yeah.
But what do we do after that?
I mean, the present moment is all there is, like you were saying last night, right? Like fighting against the reality, I'm going to lose every time.
Yeah. So how do we cultivate? We eat in harmony. We think in harmony. We physically work in harmony. More natural forms of moving the body, such as yoga or Tai Chi or gardening or walking, and any movement that doesn't harm us, really. There's no rules on you have to do Tai Chi, but any movement, as long as you're not hurting yourself and shortening your life. And thinking, how we think, and that's where meditation comes into play. So where do we want to go, and what is the purpose? In the end, the purpose of keeping ourselves healthy is to also serve the world. But you can't do that without proper health, and only you personally, meaning you or me personally or anyone else, can decide that. No religious rules can decide that for you. So, I should be helping the world. That's a good thing to help, to have some sort of service, but without being in balance, you're just a can of gasoline putting it on the fire. So that's why no one should feel inhibited or shy about taking care of themselves.
Right. And To me, it's such a significant belief. Just speaking on the personal level, like the belief that by better taking care of myself, I'm going to be a better servant to others. There's no question about that anymore. But getting clarity on that is essential, because if I feel shame regarding my own care, then that seems to tie everything in a knot and complicate it all, right?
Right. And of course, when it comes to something like shame, there's healthy shame and there's toxic shame. Toxic shame would be what you just described. Why should one feel shameful for taking care of your basic needs, and maybe even not just your basic needs, but your abundant needs? As you said, life should be fun.
Yeah.
Life should be filled with some laughter and joking around, and so that's living abundantly.
Yeah, and I actually don't see it anymore as a kind of separation, that the service itself is also a need.
Right.
So I don't see anything outside of the realm of like self-care, I could put it, like for Avi. So it's not like I'm filling myself up and getting to a really good place. Okay, and then now I can be of service to other people, and that drains me, and then I have to fill myself up. I don't see it like that. The service itself is something that I need that also fills me up.
Yeah, and I think that the key word there that I would see is moderation. So when let's say you're a yoga teacher, and you teach one class, and you just feel so fulfilled by it. Okay, you really just, everyone had a good time, they got a lot out of it, you felt great about it. Let's say all of a sudden you're now teaching 10 classes a week.
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah. The question, how much, has become maybe the most important question in my life.
Yeah, right. How much? So the scenario that you just described, the second question after that would be how much. You might feel that way with imbalance, but all of a sudden you're working in the kitchen here 10 hours a day.
Right.
Burn out.
Right.
And it's the problem, I think, is when you're convincing yourself that it's all in service, you can hide from what's happening for that overdoing of the 1 hour of working in the kitchen might be totally joyful, chanting away. So it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or taking this identity or personality too seriously. To me, that's what kind of leads to those situations, because it's like, Avi is such a good servant, or he's so tough, pushing beyond, instead of this, what we were speaking about before, of just like, what does he need? Okay, is it time to stop? Is it time to pause?
Very few things are an emergency. So when it comes to service, I ask myself, is this an emergency? If it's a medical emergency, I tell someone to go to the emergency room. But how much is really life or death situation or a true emergency? Hardly ever, right? So why should we overtax ourselves if it's not an emergency? What is the purpose of that? So gardens don't like to be overtaxed. If it rains heavy for 7 days in a row, the garden's going to have some trouble.
Right. But see, like the reason though, I think, is why overtaxing, why making an emergency when there is none, is in a way I'm probably trying to prove something to myself. Again and again and again. Just constantly, assessing, how good am I? How do I compare? Am I good enough to other people?
Right.
This kind of game, right?
Yeah. It's a game, and where does that come from?
Yeah.
And I think it comes from somewhere along the lines, there was an establishment of lower self-esteem. And that's one thing in our cultivation practices that we're trying to get over. Someone once had a T-shirt that I really liked, and it was, I think it was an outgrowth of the 12-step movement. And the T-shirt said, "What part of no don't you understand?"
Yeah.
You know, so I think we have to raise our self-integrity. I'm not more so than even just our self-esteem, but our self-integrity. Do we feel integral with ourselves? And that is something that can be practiced and cultivated. So, for an example, is back to the no issue. When you go to the supermarket and they say, "Would you like to donate the rest of your change?" Is that what I think they say? You know, so do you say yes because you feel guilty of what the cashier is going to be thinking about you?
Yeah.
Or do you say yes because it's a cause that you really feel firmly, just totally want to donate to? Or do you say no because you really rather not? You know, so I find a simple situation like that, a good practice time to say no, to establish your boundaries. Because even gardens have fences around them to keep, and sometimes even nets over them to keep the birds from picking at the blueberries. But you know, I'm sure they do some protection measures here at Yogaville, at the Yogaville Lotus Garden, right? So what kind of protection do you have for yourself and boundaries? I was just at a Taoist retreat, and first time ever, we covered talisman on how to protect ourselves using images and visualizations and written calligraphy. So your physical form is you're making this particular caricature of, let's say, safety. There's one for safety. But also as you're doing that, you're imagining that as you're writing out the diagram or the caricature, the character for safety. So what kind of safety net are you building for yourself as we cultivate? It's just a way. It is a way of the world for our own health, not to live in fear all the time. But like I said, even a garden has some sort of boundaries around it.
Even I consider, you know, a safety net of allowance. To me, that feels very safe for me, as opposed to, is there so many decisions throughout the day, like the one that you're describing? Say yes here, say no here, right? All the time we're making these choices, and that can feel very pressurized. And ultimately, I don't really want to live in that place where I'm always feeling like I need to make the right decision, right? So it's almost like that relaxed faith or trust that, like, you know, whatever feels right in this moment, like giving myself that freedom to, like, right here, no feels appropriate. Right here, yes feels appropriate.
Yeah, it's true. So whenever I ask people what kind of, I practice Chinese medicine as my day job, and my job that I make my living out of, I ask someone how would they like to take the herbs? So there's several ways you can take herbs: boiling them into a tea, instant tea in granulated form, or capsules. But I let the person know, no pressure. We could always change our minds, and I'll help you make that decision, since I'm the person that has the knowledge of the herbal medicine. But there's no pressure. We're always reevaluating our life and our decision making. So there's no pressure or stress if you somehow reevaluate and say, no, I was enjoying going that way, but now I want to go that way. So giving yourself that allowance.
Yeah, feels so important to me. I really wanted to ask you about paradoxes. You mentioned that yesterday. And, you know, reading for me the Tao Te Ching just blew me away on that kind of level. The feeling of rightness that, yeah, these paradoxes are, that's true.
Right.
You know, as an example, really genuinely being okay with not knowing, right? That I don't need to know, I don't need to attain anything. And then it seems, if I'm, again, genuinely in that place, something comes through that I know is true. That I know. So like, why is it set up that way? That like, by letting go of the desire to know, all of a sudden, the knowledge comes through. Like, and there's lots of paradoxes, right? And it's really emphasizing them. So I'm just curious, like, can you share a little bit about paradoxes?
Well, the Tao Te Ching is the whole book almost is filled with paradoxes. So we judge ourselves based on the other side of things. So if it's light out, that light defines darkness. So it's constantly going on throughout the Tao Te Ching as far as if you're strong, well, if there's another guy who's a late weightlifter and could bench press 250 pounds, now maybe I'm weak because I can't do that. So it's all, those are paradoxes that are listed throughout the Tao Te Ching. That's why being in balance between heaven and earth is important, because it's always a no-win situation when you're involved in paradoxes, because I might look very strong compared to someone else if we're comparing. So paradoxes are about comparison.
Yeah.
And where do we choose to have our relevancy? It's a choice of perception in how we're putting these things relevant to ourselves. So we can learn from wisdom, but we also can destroy ourselves through comparison. And again, that's what paradoxes really are.
Yeah.
They're comparisons to have some point of relevancy, and sometimes that point of relevancy can say, "Oh, things aren't so bad," or "Oh, things are really bad," depending on how your perception is.
Do you feel grateful that you went down this path of, Taoism and naturopathy and Eastern medicine, all these things that I know you're immersed in? Do you, because it's very different than most people. I mean, in a way, you're like a unicorn. I feel like, meeting someone that's so knowledgeable in these areas. So, yeah, how do you feel about your relationship to these things? Yeah.
Well, I'm, very grateful. Sometimes I don't quite understand it. When I was first year of college, I got introduced to yoga, and I just fell in love with those particular teachings. That teacher is a good friend today. His name is Marga Bandhu. And those teachings dramatically changed my life, changed my outlook, my nervous system, my diet. And I just sometimes, and that is what eventually led me to naturopathic medicine, Taoism, Kung Fu, Tai Chi, and so forth. So I feel very grateful for all that, because my life would have went in a different direction. I didn't have family that introduced me to any of this. The only thing I could say to that, well, first I am grateful, is one of the reasons I believe in reincarnation or past lives is because I feel like it was like a past life awakening me in this present lifetime. I think if you choose, everyone could have reincarnations within one lifetime. So we always think of reincarnation as we die and then we reincarnate. I don't know if that's true or not. But I do feel you can have if you don't like the word reincarnation, you can say reinvent. But I feel we have to reinvent. If we want to grow, I guess is the question first, to reinvent ourselves.
Yes, we want to grow.
Yeah. Good. So I was fortunate enough to have something wake up in me, whether we call it reincarnation or reinventing, something woke up in me to see this truth and this lifestyle and change my life. None of my family were into these kinds of things, but it did lead me and awoke in me a great passion for studying not just yoga, but eventually leading to naturopathic medicine, Chinese medicine. And it was a passion. Now remember, this is 1971. It was a great passion. I had no idea that I would eventually could make a living during the day. But so I constantly feel grateful that my life could have been very different. In fact, I just was talking with one cousin by email. Everyone on both of my sides of my family has passed away. And I'm just so grateful because I think I'm still here for those awakenings introduced to me by these spiritual paths, first yoga, then to Taoism. So I am grateful. And I think in our meditation courses, we have a 5-year program, and it's divided into 8 months. So 8 months a year and 4 months off, even though you still meditate. There's one called the Grateful Cycle. And it's 5 different years of I think it's the 7th cycle, because it's 8 in total. Usually happens around Thanksgiving in that month, November. And we do different grateful meditations to acknowledge our gratefulness to our own lives, but also those that have benefited our lives, and to Mother Nature and the sun, and gratefulness. Now, there's special meditations that we do. So yeah, gratefulness is an important part of Taoism. So it's not just a nice thing, but bringing it back to Taoism, it's a part of the 8 cycle meditation. First, we have the first year's beginner. I don't know if there's such a thing as beginner gratefulness, but anyway, beginner meditation part, and then you move on from there.
Have you found it to be very impactful in your life, practicing gratitude? Do you notice the effect of it?
Yeah, when you ask me that question, impactful, I'm looking for even a more bigger word.
Yeah.
Because it's so, gratefulness is great. It really puts you in your place as far as your orientation to the world. And one of the benefits of gratefulness is it calms down desires.
That's right. It has to, right?
Yeah. So because you're not grateful usually for the future or what you're going to be grateful for, because you don't really know.
Yeah.
But you're usually grateful for your present moment and for past things in your life, which then calms down our wants and our desires, including desire for knowledge and intellectual pursuits, not just having more material things, but even more intellectual pursuits. We're grateful for where we are right now. Yeah. And by being grateful, you're not saying, why couldn't have been? Why couldn't it have been this way? Yeah. Why couldn't I be President of the United States? Why couldn't I be the president of Yogaville? Or whatever it might be. When you're grateful, you eliminate those things.
Yeah. And then everything that comes from there is like a bonus.
Yeah. Yes. So, yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I'm grateful for the breakfast I had this morning. I'm grateful for sitting here talking to you today. I'm grateful for the beautiful, gorgeous day here at Yogaville on April 29th.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I imagine that there are quite a few people that come to you that maybe are experiencing a lot of challenges in their life, and maybe they weren't able to find answers, through the traditional means, and there's a good amount of doubt still in them at the validity of what you have to offer them. I'm curious how you engage with them. Yeah.
Well, some of my answers to that are based on 50 years of practice. So if someone comes to me and is doubtful, I'm not going to engage in any form of argument about anything. So, but if someone has some honest questions about Chinese medicine or natural medicine, we can engage in chatting about that. But again, for me at this point, and this is coming from someone who's been doing this for a long time, I'm not engaging in proving anything. And I'm also not engaging trying to save anyone. And that's where I have come to this point. So everyone needs to decide for themselves what they want to do with their lives and their choices that they want to do. So I'll give you an example. I once occasionally had consultations with my teacher, who is now out of the public life. He's 109 years old now, but we were going to do, I've had several forms of consultation: spiritual consultation, herbal consultation, I Ching consultation. And the one that comes to my mind is the I Ching consultation. And I sat down, and the I Ching is another section of Taoism, where we consult the book of the I Ching to see how we can be guided in the changes that are coming into our life. And it's the first binary computerized system in the world. Computer meaning computers are based on binary system. So we have yin and yang line, straight line, and then double line. So I asked him, well, what is your question? Because you need to have some sort of question when you do an I Ching reading. Well, the question was, at that time in my life, my father had just died, and I had a child that was just born, all in the same year. So second child. And being a father of young children, you're trying to provide and have their needs met along with their mother, my wife. And so I said, it's really been stressful. I'm just burnt out. My father just died. A few months before that, I had a newborn. So he looked at me, and this is where we're talking about not how much are you going to talk, he said, well, you have, your question doesn't really require the I Ching reading. Your question, I will give you fatherly advice, and we won't do the I Ching. Also, go back to the front desk and get your money back for the I Ching reading, because you pay a certain fee for that. So the advice on that was, father dying is sad. Baby being born is joyful. that was the end of the consultation, pretty much. There might have been a few more words, but there weren't a lot more. That was the end. I mean, again, maybe I'm leaving out a few things, but not much. In the gist of it, that was, and I had to walk away with that and contemplate on that. Like, don't miss this moment of this beautiful child that's so joyful. And grieve the sadness that your father passed away. Go ahead and grieve it. It's sad. The purity of that. That's the message I got from that advice. So keeping things quite simple.
Yeah.
You know, things, we talked about things even in our speech, we try to keep it simple. Even in our actions, try to keep it simple. So another time when I brought my Taoist teacher to Charlottesville, he requested to go to Monticello. Did a few consultations. It was at the Omni Hotel, and then the event, 2 days of talks and demonstrations of the 8 treasures, Qigong, and talks by him. We had some time, so we asked to go to the Monticello. Went to Monticello, and after we toured Monticello, we came out onto the wooden walkway outdoors, and there were some trees with those whirligigs. I think that's called.
Yeah.
And so he pulls out of his pocket a beautiful felt container, like a jewelry box. You know, they kind of have a little velt on the top. Opens that up, and he goes down and he starts picking all the whirliwigs and putting them in a little container about like that big. So I start helping him, putting them, filling up the box, and close it. I says, well, by the way, why are we doing this? He says, oh, for my grandchildren. How simple. Didn't go to Toys R Us. Didn't go to the toy store, whatever it might be. Simple nature. You know, how fun they are, right? You drop them,
Yeah.
And so we can look for that simplicity within our gratefulness. Whether it be simplicity in our diet, or simplicity in our actions, or simplicity in our communications with people. But ultimately, back to your question, is I am not I'm not in the business of convincing people to do something or anything.
Yeah.
So we can have a discussion. You know, there's certainly enough Western science now supporting Chinese medicine and natural medicine. But I am not going to be engaging in that kind of, what I feel, a fruitless discussion if it's more argumentative in a way, or defensive. And whenever we go into a defensive mode, it's energy draining. So unless, the only maybe exception might be, maybe it's just for me this exception, is if it's an emergency situation. So if it's an emergency situation and clearly you know what to do, and then it's like, time out, everybody. I know what to do. I know how to handle this thing. But if it's emergency, again, how often does that happen?
Right. I imagine that you've seen a good amount of transformations in terms of people's relationships to this kind of work, right, from the beginning to the end, where all of a sudden, like, there's a shift that happens inside of them, and now they're much more open because they've seen the effect of it.
Right.
And,
So, and then people need, that's true, and I've seen that, people need to give it a chance.
Yeah.
So I usually, with chronic conditions, I I usually encourage people to come once a week for 12 weeks. Just coming, unless it's someone who works with me regularly, but someone brand new, I encourage them to come a few times to judge for themselves, to start to feel that difference, whatever we might be working on.
I imagine perhaps the most formative challenge in many ways for us is the deep desire that we have to be included in a community, right? To be a part of something, and the courage that it takes to, in a way, walk a different path, right? Which I'm sure that has been the case for you, where your family wasn't, interested in any of these things, or even when I think about your teacher and him, taking out the little velvet bag and like this, right? Like most people would think, oh, well, what am I, like, being cheap by doing that because I'm not going to get an actual gift or something like that. I imagine he's so far removed from what's common that, but it feels that it's important to be compassionate regarding this need, basically, that I think we have that's underneath that to just fit in. And if I start doing things that are very different, I'm going to have the same friends, and my family's going to still want to have a relationship with me, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was lucky that my family never discouraged me. It was more, I had always the encouragement of making decisions. I was never dissuaded, so I was lucky in that way. But yeah, say more about that, though. I'd say.
Yeah. I can speak on a personal level. That understanding is what led me to come and live at Yogaville, because I felt for a long time that it just wasn't working for me, that I wasn't fitting in, but also simultaneously that it was exhausting to be kind of a fish, swimming against the current all the time. So when actually I zoomed out, kind of what we were talking about before, and viewed it as like, what does Avi need? Like, I'm Avi's caretaker. How can I cultivate his growth? The answer came back very clearly. Find a community where he won't feel like he's such an outsider anymore. And that's what led to here. So that's why I bring that up, because I think I'm not alone in this powerful force of wanting to be included. So to understand it, to be aware of it, conscious of it, and then make the decision that feels right from there.
Yeah, it can get lonely.
Yeah.
And sometimes moving into more of a total immersed community is certainly one solution. Other solutions, if you're not immersed in a community, is to find your community, but also to dissuade yourself from being judgmental of anyone. Because that judgmentalness separates you from other people, and loving people, loving who they are, loving what they are, is a way of creating a bigger community, and reaching out to people and being vulnerable allows you to have expression with other folks. Now, it is nice to be with people with similarities. I was lucky to meet my wife at a yoga institute many, many years ago, and we have that commonality. So it does help to have your closer people that are in your life to have some common lifestyle, not just beliefs, but a physical lifestyle that's similar is important when you're with closer friends or family. But you can create your community. That's one of the reasons why I teach once in a while 8 Treasures Qigong, as we have a nice group of, maybe a dozen people might show up. I rent a space from the Laughing Dragon Kung Fu School, and we, share time. Then afterwards, some of us might go out to lunch, and it's a way of forming community. So there has to be some sort of commonality when we're forming community. So when I started having children, I have 3 kids, I became friends with people that maybe I normally might not have, but these are people we shared a common bond in raising our children together. So I think that's important when it comes to community. For you, you've immersed yourself in more of a totality here, which is great too.
But even like I hear you, and it also seems that, yes, we can be in community, on a certain plane, but also there's no getting away from the fact that it's a solo journey on a certain level,
Yeah, it is. But, I hear you and I agree with that. So how do we take responsibility for that solo journey and yet stave off loneliness? And because we are social beings, we like community, we like being with people to an extent, then we need our cultivation and private and personal time to be responsible for this journey. So how do we balance that out? It is fun to do yoga, go to yoga class. I think folks who are constantly doing, the average folk, now there's the unusual person, but the average person who's doing yoga by themselves all the time, never with a group, never in a class, never with a community. My personal opinion, I think, are missing out on a different experience that could be very enriching.
Yeah.
Now there's the unusual person who that's not a non-issue, but I think that's more like, I'm just putting a percentage on it, like 5% of people, maybe less than that. So, because I do meet some people who are say, well, I just do my yoga with YouTube, and I encourage them, if they like yoga, to go to a class, be with people, because what happens before and after that class is powerful in cultivating your inner well-being.
Right.
Or come to Yogaville to have a community experience for a weekend or a week.
Well, it's back to that question of how much, right? And where can I see where I am on the spectrum? Am I only doing a solo practice all the time and never practicing in community? Or am I only practicing in community? And based on where I see that I am, can I move more into the middle?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where moderation of all our behaviors comes in. When we're trying to take care without getting neurotic, we want to have a approach of moderation, and that's what you're saying.
Yeah. One last thing I really wanted to ask you about, and that is kind of back to the simplicity, and I think maybe Taoism and the Tao Te Ching emphasize kind of looking at what is sickness and what is health in regard to maybe all things, right? And it kind of hit me last night as you were sharing that, like, wow, that's a very powerful way and a very simple way to regard whatever it is. Is this something that leads to sickness, or is this something that leads to health? Yeah.
And sickness in all of the health, remember we went over the healths, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, and financial health.
Yeah.
What is that going to do? So the key, one of the three, you have to embrace the 3 treasures offered by the Tao Te Ching. I think if you want a more simple life. Those 3 treasures are frugality, humility, kindness. And I'm just quoting from the Tao Te Ching. So simplicity is a type of frugality, right? So those 3 treasures will help us embrace our lives in a more moderate way. The other thing in another verse in the Tao Te Ching advocates, well, first it explains if you open up, and this might be counterintuitive to maybe the New Age movement, at least in some circles. I think it's verse 49 or somewhere around there. Open up all your doors. Open up all your shutters. Open up all your windows. And forever you'll be exhausted for the rest of your life. You know, we're sometimes too concerned, and again, it's all where your perspective is about being too open. But then it goes on to say, close all your shutters, close all your windows, close all your doors and shutters and windows, and you'll know supreme vitality for the rest of your life. So in a nutshell, what that's saying is not to be closed and shut off from your community, which we've been talking about, but to help protect your life force. Don't overexhaust it. Don't overdo it. So that's what that advocates. Can you live in balance and in harmony with who you are? Also, when you question that, you have to, back to we were talking about comparison, take into account constitution. They refer to this in Chinese medical books. But you can also say genetics. Same difference, pretty much. So what is your genetic makeup? You know, someone else might have a very powerful genetic constitutional makeup, and they maybe are more suited for physical labor. For someone else, maybe they can't do 8 hours of physical labor.
It's such a fine line, because I can look at someone else and I can be inspired, I can learn from what they're doing, but to compare is like the shadow side of that. And it's like, you can't put our lives on spreadsheets.
Right.
You know, and it does seem that like the human mind likes to try to imagine that it can know things that it cannot know.
Yeah.
Like something like comparing how good one person is to another person. So you can't know that.
Right, right. You can't, and you're not that person. And there's so many facets that make up that person.
Yep.
That so be who you are.
That's health. That's wholeness. Being who you are.
Yeah, I mean, and for today.
Yeah.
You
For
know,
this moment. Yeah.
the 12th step has the famous serenity prayer. Give me the wisdom to change the things I can, to accept the things I cannot.
Yeah.
I like to add 2 words to the end of that. I don't know if I had the exact prayer exactly, but it's close to that.
And the wisdom to know the difference, I think.
Wisdom to know the difference. I like to add 2 words at the end of that prayer. For today.
Yeah.
For today.
Yeah. That's essential, because the reality, I think, is fluctuation. Right? It's
Right.
all changing moment to moment. As much as my mind might not want to believe that, that's the truth. So even more than today is like for this moment.
Yeah.
Every moment is another opportunity to practice.
Moment. And that's why the I Ching, the subtitle of the I Ching book that I use by I Ching, is called The Book of Changes and the Unchanging Truth. So that's why we do the I Ching, to help us get guidance for the ultimate changes that are happening every day, or every moment. And so the I Ching offers a type of guidance to help, if we need it, if we feel we're not clear or in crisis, we use the I Ching to garner some sort of guidance to move through these ever-changing changes. And that's life. And
to also have the guidance without disregarding the personal autonomy. you were speaking about that before. Because I think life can feel overwhelming, so there can be a tendency of like, okay, you're the authority. You're the authority for my life. Whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do it. But in a way, I think that's a cop-out. That's not going to lead it, because the truth, I can use the wisdom that you have, but I'm always filtering it into what the system of what feels right for me. Yeah.
Yeah, we have to sit with that in meditation for that wisdom. Even the I Ching. I Ching will never tell you what to do. That's the nice thing about the I Ching. It offers you guidance and insights into your question. So it never will tell you what to do. So no worries about that. You have to decide. You have to meditate on it and think about where your life is going. And also where the source, if you did seek out information or guidance, what was the source of that guidance? Does it make sense to your life?
Paul, I really appreciate this time.
Well, thanks for having me
Yeah.
on your podcast.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah. I've never come to visit you in Charlottesville yet, but I know that you're there, and even that itself is a comfort.
Well, come on by.
Yeah. Okay.
We have other people working there, and you could see everybody.
Yeah. I'd like to check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed this content and think others might as well, please feel free to share and subscribe.